Once upon a time, two friends joined forces to bring you the best in horror entertainment. Brian from the north, Tim from the south, each bringing their own unique perspective to the horror community. Movie reviews, Blu-ray releases, beer pairings, games, and more. Welcome to your new home for horror. This is Civil Gore.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome to episode 214 of the Civil Gore podcast. I am your host, Tim.
And this is Brian. And we have a really, really cool show. We have a great movie, I think, and we have also a really great interview guest. We have the movie, The Awakening, which is about, I guess like a 1914?
1921,
1921, like kind of ghost debunker. Basically is the plot of this movie, and she goes to investigate something to prove that there's nothing there. But we actually have a great guest to pair it with, which is Becky Galentine, which you might know on social media as My Bloody Galentine, which Tim and I already approve of the pun. We think that's amazing. And we had a great interview with her coming up that I think you guys you're gonna absolutely love. It was just such a fun interview to talk to her. She was so genuine and so informative about her craft. I think it's really gonna blow you guys away how good this is. This is really fun.
All right, guys. Well, let's get right into it. This is our first shot. Okay, Brian. So I just have not had time to watch a lot of horror, but I did get to play a board game. This is one I've actually had for quite a while. I got this probably a couple years ago, and I just never had really given it the attention it probably deserved. And it's not exactly a horror board game, but it's kind of horror adjacent, and that is Hellboy, the board game. Hellboy, of course, is a popular comic book character. He has been in several movies, which I've enjoyed all the Hellboy movies. Even the kind of stepchild one that was David Harbour played Hellboy instead of Ron Perlman, which everybody that kind of loves the Ron Perlman ones more. But I liked all of them. And so I've always really liked the Hellboy character. And the board game is really fun. The board game is cooperative. It's kind of a dungeon crawl, but basically what you're doing in it is you can play Hellboy, you can play Abe, there's two other characters you can play, and essentially what you're trying to do in every scenario is collect as many clues as possible before your doom track runs out. When your doom track runs out, that's always going to trigger like a boss fight. But the more clues you've gathered, the easier it is going to be for you to beat the boss, because it's going to give you some kind of advantage in the fight. So it's kind of a little bit of a race against time. There's some combat involved. You can attack enemies on the board. There's some dice chucking to determine combat outcome. Everybody's got some special abilities they can use. There's items and weapons that come into play. So a really fun game. I've had it, like I said, I've had it for a few years, just never kind of got past this tutorial mission. And this weekend I decided to kind of give it its fair shot and really enjoyed it. I've played 2 out of the, I believe, 5 or so missions included. There's a couple of expansions out, which I don't have yet, but I'll probably pick up at some point. So if you ever see that one around, it's a pretty good time if you're a fan of the character. And that is Hellboy, the board game.
Nice. So one of the things I got to watch just one thing, and it was a movie called SLAPFACE. It's when you hear this, it's going to be on Shudder that week. I think the embargo though lifts on today, the day you're listening to this. So it's a really cool movie. I was glad we got a screener for this, and supposedly it's been like a big festival hit. Like it's been getting tons and tons of positive reviews from the festival. So basically, I'll read the official description. As a boy deals with the loss of his mother by creating a dangerous relationship with a monster rumored to live in the woods. So it's just really good. There's actually Dan Hedaya is in this. It's like, Dan Hedaya, is like Nick Tortelli from from Cheers, and the father in Clueless. And this he has like a really like, dare I say, like tour de force performance. He's so he plays a very serious character in it, and he's really good. I mean, I know he's played serious roles before, but people that are used to him in this kind of like a comedic kind of thing will be very impressed by him. And I didn't realize how old he is, but he still can bring it. But but this movie is really cool. I don't really want to say too much about it, other than especially because it's about to be released. But let me just tell you, this was definitely from all the hype that I saw based off from the different festivals, definitely lives up to it. And I think, Tim, this is right up your alley. I think, especially with the, I saw someone kind of refer to it as almost like it's like kind of like Spielbergian horror movie at some level, which, but it's definitely more art house than that, but really good. I think definitely I recommend it. So I think Shudder, I'm not sure when it comes out on Shudder. It might be the day this releases, I believe it comes out later in the week. So definitely look for it this week on Shudder. And and I wanted to do a final thing before we move into the movie. A little shout out to my brother's fiance, Gigi. Her mom actually is a big listener to our podcast. I found out her name is Crystal, and we just want to give her a nice shout out and thank you for all the support. She follows us on social media, and she's and according to her, Gigi, she says that she actually really loves our show. So that's awesome. So thank you.
Oh, nice. Thank you, Crystal. Yeah. So let's get into our interview because I was so excited about this when Brian brought this guest up. So Becky Galentine or My Bloody Galentine, as she's known on social media, has a really massive TikTok following because she does these great paranormal research type videos where she'll visit a location and kind of give some facts about it. And she has a great Instagram where she kind of showcases her love of all things Halloween, which of course Brian and I also love. That kind of, as you'll hear in the interview, kind of that nostalgic Halloween. That's really the tone I like as well. And so when Brian said she was going to come on, I was really excited because we've always talked about wanting to have somebody connected with kind of like the paranormal investigation side of things. Even though that's not strictly horror, it's something that Brian and I both have an interest in. And as you know on the show, we'll bring in anybody that shares an interest, even if it's not necessarily related to horror movies. So I was super excited for her to come on and talk about her experiences. And she certainly did not fail to impress. So I think you guys are really going to enjoy this interview and kind of a look into what she does, which I think, like I was telling Brian, I think that's a cool little niche that she's got going on.
Yeah.
I think that kind of, I'm not surprised she has that many followers because of the angle of paranormal investigation that she takes compared to some of the more sensationalized stuff you see on social media, which we kind of get into in the interview.
Yeah, so I think you're really going to enjoy this interview. This is really fun.
All right, so let's get right to it. This is our interview with Becky Galentine. All right, everybody, we're very excited tonight to have on the show Becky Galentine, although you may know her as My Bloody Galentine across her various social media platforms, including TikTok, where my daughter follows you. Welcome to the show. And before we dive into what you do, I would like you to kind of introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about how you got started.
Okay. Thank you guys for having me on here. I'm super excited about it. Yeah, so I go by My Bloody Galentine on social media. It was sort of an accident. I moved to Connecticut in the middle of the pandemic. I was working as an embalmer, and during my time off, I wasn't allowed to make friends or go see friends because it was quarantine. So I just started going to really spooky locations, and they got progressively weirder and scarier. And I started talking about graveyards, which I didn't think people would be super interested in. And now I have almost 500,000 followers who are all interested in that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was reading there's like a mortuary TikTok trend now of people that kind of do that kind of thing.
The industry frowns upon it, but I think it's good that young voices are kind of breaking through and being transparent about what's going on. So
very cool. Now, my stepdad used to work at a funeral home, and he used to bring on all kinds of strange stories about weird things that went on in the funeral homes. Have you had any weird experiences?
I keep my interests and work life separate, but I will say that funeral directors I've met while in school, while working, in passing, on social media, those are the first people to like throw down a ghost story. It's the same way that I don't want people to think that I believe in ghosts, but actually, this happened, or like people talking about full-bodied apparitions, and you're like, you're a mortician, like, dead is dead more than anyone else. So the fact that actually while I was in school, there were people who would talk about it who are authorities at the school. So they have no reason to fabricate a story, especially in their position. So it's an interesting dynamic of the people who cross both paths.
Yeah, that was weird because he used to bring home stories all the time about that kind of thing. So I was just curious.
Yeah, I don't know if I would be able to do that, because I like, it's like I have a very vivid imagination, so like I could I could just see myself be alone with someone there, like that would be a little challenging for me, because I get alone in my thoughts, and that's the last thing I need. I could go off on tangents, but that's cool. So
Yep.
now here's one of the coolest things I think that I noticed about your account and everything. So like Tim and I are both collectors too. We like collect Blu-rays, board games, action figures. But I know you have a really interesting set of collections there. Like you have some vintage stuff and a certain kind of a board. I know that you have a collection of, which are cool.
It's
Yeah.
a board, nothing specific or strange about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been collecting talking boards for almost a decade now. It's been 9 years, and I initially bought one on a whim from a magician who was selling her collection on eBay, and I got hooked on it. I'm like, wow, this is incredible. There's not just Ouija boards, that's a brand name, and they were well respected and not feared, and almost like a household commodity back in the like 1890s, 1900s, into the 20s, when you get into the spiritualist movement. So it was kind of like, at first I thought I bought into the stigma, but the more I added to my home, I think I have about 100 now. I have no fear of them. There's no negative anything. I do get a lot of backlash. That's probably the number one reason I lose followers from time to time, is having that. And to that I say, good riddance. I'm going to speak my voice on that. You are not going to summon Zozo. You're not going to get possessed, and all of these empty, I call it spiritual gaslighting that comes out of it. I'm like, I've lived with these for 10 years. They're fine. They don't get up and walk around in the middle of the night. But yeah, there's actually a whole history. And now that there's a museum, we're seeing a lot more people open up to the ideas, especially spiritual people.
Yeah, that's what my daughter got into your TikToks, because I showed her your talking board collection. She really thought that was really cool. She loves that kind of thing. She's really into it. She's got hoodies with the Ouija board letters and stuff on it. So yeah, she really thought that was pretty cool. So as a fan of puns, we love your social media name, My Bloody Galentine. If you've ever listened to our podcast, we're big punsters. But you've also created what you call Galloween. What can you tell us about Galloween?
So that was when I first started my account. I just called it Galloween because it kind of encompassed a community. For a long time, dark tourism was a conversation, and I don't consider myself a dark tourist. I consider myself someone who enjoys things that are spooky, things that are a little bit off the beaten path, but I don't get downright morbid, scary, dark. So Galloween kind of encompasses like the feelings of the community, especially when I first started, and people who were saying it's Halloween every day. So that's why I started using that. And especially since so many people are like Galentine's Day, I just thought it was kind of a fun play on that as well, because it's like, I like Halloween. So why do we have to say Galentine's Day? Obviously my last name is actually time, by the way. Most people think I made that up.
That's awesome. Well, yeah, and it's funny too, because you said how you don't, you kind of make it like more like, kind of up, and not morbid. And it's true, because like I think one of the things that's so appealing about your page is, here you are, you're like, either walking through a cemetery or telling the story, but you have like a pleasant voice, and it's very like just like a calm and soothing like tale of it. And I think that helps, like, because some people could get freaked out by little things like that, when you tell a story. But like, I think you have it in such a good way, and in these little like snippets on TikTok, I think it's so interesting. You get so much out of that short time.
That's one of my big feedbacks that I earn from people, is I like how you're not trying to add that it's scary or turn it into something it's not. And it's like, I just want to be transparent. It is what it is. I don't need to sit there and go, it was dark and scary, like whisper, use, like, I do sometimes do the little creepy like Halloween background music, but I don't like dramatizing it, especially not the paranormal. It's what perpetuates fear, stigma. It's what's causing the demon craze that's happening within the community right now, and it's what makes people afraid in their own houses, and that's not fair. Like, and same with cemeteries. They get neglected, abandoned, and turned into something that they're not. And at first I remember people being like, they leave the comments that are like rainbow flower heart emoji, and they say your voice, it's like rainbows, flowers, hearts, all, and then what you're talking about is like knives, gravestone emoji, like and, I think it normalizes it for people, and it makes it more real for them when you're not dramatizing it.
Yeah, I love your page too, because I think you like the same kind of things that me and Brian like, which is kind of that, I don't know, just like that, that New England Halloween feel, that vintage Halloween feel.
Yep.
I love that kind of stuff where it's, even though we do a horror movie podcast, I don't necessarily like all like the crazy gory decorations and everything. In fact, as Brian, when I do my Halloween stuff for my house, it's all, very kid friendly and, more of the kind of retro style. So I really like that.
Yeah, people always think I'm super into like spirit Halloween and like the big, like the zombies and stuff like that. And I'm like, I actually think it's more haunting to look at an old paper mache jack-o'-lantern and things like that. Like that, it makes me happy. It brings out like the nostalgia of it. And there's still that element. That's why I enjoy the movie Trick or Treat, actually, because it has like nostalgic feel about it. But when people talk about horror in the sense with me, I'm always like, my favorite movie is The Burbs. Like, what better movie than something that takes something that is kind of creepy, kind of dark, like the murderous neighbors, but it's hilarious. So that's kind of like the best descriptor of like who I am as a person. And I think that it's broadened the spooky community a little bit.
Yeah, no, that's yeah. And we always say Trick or Treat. I always say that like that movie does such a great job of encompassing everything people love about Halloween in one movie. It doesn't have to be trauma. It's like, there's kids about a local legend, and it's all the trick-or-treaters, and it's, you have every facet and all different age groups of all people celebrating Halloween and that thing. I think they do such a good job. And I know they've been trying to work on a sequel, and it's, I've read that, they're looking for the right way to do it. And I think it's going to be hard to capture. It was so perfect, the first one, like that.
Exactly. I don't think that you can replicate that feeling where it's like, you can smell that movie, like just like the autumn in the air and the breeze, like it's perfect. So yeah, that's definitely like the vibe I keep in my house, which is why I like all the old pumpkins.
So here's a question probably you get asked a lot. So, of course, the primary content you have is the touring some of the country's most haunted location. So how do you go about, like, what's your process going to pick a place? And are there any particular characteristics that you look for when you want to feature a place on your site?
Yeah, because there's definitely some where I just know that that's the story I meant to tell. And you'll see places where you can kind of tell, I guess, if you've been following me for a while, that I just stopped there because I was in the area. And then there's places that I've gone really far to see and really put a lot of effort. And those are the stories you see going viral, where it's like, I drove up to Oswego, New York, to talk about the story of the parents who kept their daughter in the coffin for over a year and in the house, and they didn't want to give up her after all that time. And it's like these stories that kind of challenge the way people think of grief, death, the afterlife, something that's not normal. And I know some people, because I want to normalize it, and I know at first people are going to go, that's strange, they kept their daughter in their home for a year. And it's like, why is it strange? Oh, because it challenges societal's norms about grief and the afterlife, and like when someone is there and if they're there or not, so just blending like paranormal, normal, and grief into these stories. So some people I know, they're like, oh, I need to go to the bloodiest place I can find where the most murders happened and the most tragedy, which I don't think that's the case. Some of the greatest experiences I've had at like a haunted location are ones where you have like the Roaring 20s parties that happen there or something, and not necessarily anything negative, just this lively, upbeat feeling. And you walk in and you're like, yeah, this is it. But there's not really a specific method. I just hear of stories, or I have them in the back of my head. Like there's probably 100 places all over the country that I want to go that just feel like they resonate with me.
Do people like send you stuff like, hey, you got to come here? They probably like bombard you with like suggestions, right?
Yeah, the weird thing about TikTok is people tell me to go to places I've already been, and I'm like, just scroll back
I know.
because the algorithm works. You only really see the person's viral videos, so they're like, "Oh, you would really love this place," and it's like, I've been there. I've actually made multiple videos at that location. So, right now, I'm more focused on digging up the ones that like really nobody knows about. Like, I had a really cool one in Albany, Vermont, where the family curse that it was like the mother-in-law cursed them because they were stealing her money. There's a generational curse, and in the family truly got wiped out over the years. And that was one that I was like, nobody knows about this. Like, those are the fun ones for me. But on TikTok, the algorithm favors the famous haunts and the crazy ones. So
Yeah, that was the one thing I noticed I was gonna mention too. I'm glad you brought it up because I almost forgot to say that you featured some places that that I haven't heard of, and a lot, everyone knows okay, the Amityville house, or everyone knows this, this hotel, but you've gone to places that I've that I've like, oh, that's interesting. I don't think I've ever heard of that. And it's like in New Haven, Connecticut, because I'm like, I grew up in Westchester. I mean, now I actually live in Amityville of all places. But yeah, so it's like you were at some places. I'm like, oh my God, all that time, I like that cool place was right there, and you don't. And I hope that your audience appreciates that stuff because you can find the big places anywhere online. You just got to Google it and you'll find 7,000 videos on it. But like the fact, I think I think the strength of your videos are that you do get places that are not necessarily so known.
I actually use a lot of outside of social media and Google resources, and I implore other people to do the same, which is why I recently posted about the duck or the chicken.
That cracked me up, that one with the
I like the
was
chicken.
like,
That was cool.
yeah.
if you go on Google and you find the stuff, you have to verify it. You can't just sit there and perpetuate the old like web ring haunted pages and these rumors unless you're getting on the ground level and doing the gritty work, which is what separates, the spooky accounts from the true, not just paranormal investigators, but paranormal researchers, and the true experts in the field will agree with this. So experts, I mean, there's not really experts, but like people who really care about integrity in the community. So a lot of the stuff I do, I'm looking at like newspapers from the 1800s. I went to a church in Brooklyn, and they have a crypt under the church, and I walked in and I was like, I'm looking for this grave, and they're like, we don't know of this person. And I was like, well, he got married after he died. So he died, they stood him up in his coffin, they had a whole wedding party for him. I ended up finding out when I got to this crypt under this basement in a church that the guy was actually shipped back to his, I think it was France. He was shipped home afterwards, but he was held there. So the paper had reported on his interment there. And the same with like the chicken. I was like, I don't know if this exists. So why would I tell 500,000 people about how it was at the Historical Society unless I go to verify that? And when I'm there, they're giving me all this information. And I think so many people miss out on this, like the true feeling of like connecting the dots and things coming together for you when you're actually like researching and digging even deeper than the surface.
That's so cool to hear, because you're right. So many people will, oh, I heard it on the internet, so it's true, that old adage of the running joke. But I bet you so many people, they, mostly care about like, I just want to get my 500,000 hits and stuff. That's really great though, that you actually will go and verify it before you put it out there, and you really get into it. So it's like, that just makes me appreciate your page even more. I mean, we both have been enjoying it since we've discovered it. So it's like now that even like I feel like even more like I want to like, I mean, I tell people about it as it is, but like now I want to really tell people, I'm like, you have to know that this stuff is legit. She researches this stuff.
Right. And I actually just spent $200 to stay at this place that is reported haunted all over the internet. And it's on these blogs. I'm not going to mention which ones, but it is repeated over and over that this place is haunted. So I go there, and the caretaker, who's lived there for 8 years, says, I've lived here for 8 years and I've never experienced anything. And he seemed very genuine. Now, I can say that maybe he's not interacting with anything and that's why, but I have to take that into account when I'm presenting this on social media, that I can't just be like, oh yeah, it's totally haunted. All these people have these crazy experiences when there's a guy who's been living there for 8 years and never experienced anything. And I think integrity in social media, especially the paranormal, is what makes it real for people. When you're willing to look at yourself and debunk something, and when you get past that, that's how you earn respect. And I don't care if people come in, which is, this happens, they fake evidence, they fake stories, they make stuff up, and then they get these huge platforms immediately. And I'm okay with taking it slow and steady and finding out the truth because it's so fun.
Do you find when you go to these places, are people pretty open about sharing experiences, or do you get any pushback sometimes from people who don't want to give up information?
So I always joke with my friends when I'm staying at these hotels and things like that, and I know that they're not into it. Like a lot of these luxury hotels have the haunted information, like King Estate in Tarrytown, they have it on their website that they're haunted, and they're not trying to capitalize it, but it's like a blurb. It's like, yes, and also we're haunted. But some places they're like,
It's the amenity,
no.
right?
Some of these places, they try to like suppress that, and I hide my equipment when I go in, and I'm not being super obvious, and I just kind of, so there is that. But when you ask people that work there, it's interesting because you can say, hey, you've worked security at this hotel. What better person than to ask them this guy, and then they'll be like, oh, well, I don't normally believe in this. And then they whip out like the coolest pictures or evidence. And yeah, so it's mixed. I've had the phone slammed on me when I've like wanted to look at something because, again, I see stuff that's shared on an old blog from 10 years ago. I don't know if it exists. I don't know if the story is true. And I call and say, hey, I'd like to visit. And they're like, I'm not interested, and hang up the phone. Like, true story, this stuff happened. So it is like the movies, like, oh yeah, I don't believe in that hocus pocus, and then like hang up the phone, But sometimes you meet these really incredible people, and it brings you closer together when they just, their eyes light up and they're like, oh, you like haunted stuff? I got something for you. And they, in that moment, they're on top of the world. This is their chance to shine. They have been walking around with their cell phone in the pocket with that special little picture in their camera roll, and they are ready to tell you about how it changed their view on the afterlife or whatever. So yeah, it's mixed. You can never really tell. You definitely get into these snobby places, or I've paid to go to a haunted place and they recently remodeled and there's no history left. It's gutted. And it's just mixed. A lot of the commercial hotels, they try to hide that because they think people don't want to go. But actually more and more people want to go to these places because they're haunted.
Right. That's why they have that sign in front of the Amityville house, because everyone that comes to visit, like to me, they want to kind of see it. So, and it's only like about 8 minutes from where I live. So I'm like, we'll drive by there and like, but we're like, you're not really supposed to stop. And there's actually a sign that says no stopping in front of it because, I guess somebody, but I heard now they decorate for Halloween. So I don't know, maybe the new owners are a little bit more relaxed, but.
If there's anything that I'm like an expert on the logistics of, it's the Amityville house. It has been like a joke. It like, I went to that house once, and the first time I went to there, and within a year I had been back 3 times against my will. Like, not against my will, but because something come up. And I'm like, I can't escape this property. So the first time I went, I like hit on the corner and I ran, and I just got a quick TikTok, and then just a few months later, I get contracted by the Travel Channel to make like an ad for one of their new shock docs about it. And I'm like, which one is it? And they're like, oh, it's Amityville. I'm like, all right, so we're going back to Amityville. I went back, and that was the first time that I was chased away. And it wasn't by the people who own the property. It was a neighbor in a red truck, and he's like, go home. And I'm like, you're right, idiot, in a pandemic, and I'm not bothering people. But I'm not like doing anything weird. I wear fairly normal clothes, and just like walk in front of there. So I did that, and I was like, all right, never going back to Amityville again after this one. And I come back and I get this call from this producer, and she's like, can you be on this documentary? And I was like, yeah, sure. What's the documentary? And she's like, Amityville and we're going to make you come to Amityville. And I'm like, I guess I'm going back to Amityville for the third time this year. And, I know the story at this point. The novelty of the house is worn off. And so we find out they're getting all the reporters from the case, and they're getting Hans Holzer's daughter was on there. Like, there were all these big names on this documentary that they're putting out, and I thought it was just like this little thing. It aired on Tubi. It was like a bigger deal than I thought it was going to be. I was like, oh no. So when I was talking about Amityville at this point, they're like, what do you know about the house? And I'm sitting at this like studio in Brooklyn. I'm like, is this really my life? Like, I'm in New York, and I'm recording this in front of cameras. I'm like hot. I feel disgusting. And I just blurted out, I don't even know where the information came from. Like, I don't know how I even said the stuff that I said on camera. And the producers were just sitting there with their mouth open. They were like, you sound like an original reporter on the case. Like, I've never heard anyone recount the story with so much detail. So then I'm like, maybe that's it. Maybe I'm done with Amityville. I'm not saying I'll never go back, but I'm like, I'm really tired of that case. So.
Well, the good thing is that Tubi special, that's how we discovered you, because I saw that on there, and I thought the way you described it, I was like, oh, wow, let me see if I, follow the account. And then ever since, that was when we started following. So that at least it came out a good thing, because now you got a couple of followers out of it. So
a lot of people saw that. That's the other thing. I'm like, how is this getting all over the internet? And I have people message me all the time. They're like, hey, ever since I saw you on that Tubi, I'm like, how has this had so much reach? Because I don't know how things work. I didn't intend to be in the public eye at all. So then I find out people watch these documentaries and they find people from them, and I guess follow them on social media. I just built everything from social media alone. So it's different for me to have people who saw something tangible in the universe and not just like social media content. But so that was interesting. That day, they tried to get them off the property, but they had spoken to the mayor, and they were like, we already have permission to be here as long as we're not on your property. So I feel bad for the people who own the house. I don't think that they deserve like being harassed by people who take it too far. But at the same time, I think there's always going to be people taking photos in front of it, especially with TikTok.
Yeah. Well, and growing up on Long Island, it's like everyone knows somebody that knew somebody that lived there. And I'm like, no, that's impossible. There hasn't been that many owners. You can't all know somebody that's lived there. So it's kind of funny.
My comments are like, I babysat there. On the viral videos, they get like thousands of comments. I babysat there. I knew this one. I worked with this person, and they said they hate when you people come to their house. And I'm like, some of them are just saying it. And there's a group of like little I don't know, like kids, like rapscallion kind of like riffraff kids that come around, and they have skateboards and bicycles, and they will chase you away. They're doing their like neighborly duties. And every time I've gone recently, I've had like this group. It's like the bully kids at the neighborhood. Like I'm a grown adult, and I see these like 15-year-olds with like scooters coming around, and I'm like, I'm gonna get my butt kicked if I don't get out of here.
That's awesome.
Oh, no.
So have you ever heard of the Martha Washington Inn in Abingdon, Virginia?
No, I haven't been there.
So that's the only supposedly haunted place I've ever stayed. But it was kind of what you described. Like, they don't advertise that they're haunted. The only reason I found out about this place was through like a random documentary. This has been years and years ago, but a buddy of mine decided to go stay there and stay in the most haunted room. And when we got there, again, it's never advertised that it's haunted, but it was just like you described. Like, the guy that was carrying our bags up, he said, what room are you guys in? And we told him, and I can't remember, it's one of the rooms is supposedly the most haunted. And when we told him, he was like, oh my God, you guys are insane. Why are you staying in that room? I would never stay there. And he's talking about all the stuff he's seen. And then the people at the desk when we checked in are going, what are you guys thinking? Like, why would you ever stay in that room? And going on and on about all these stories. So it's a pretty cool experience to go to a place that doesn't bill itself as haunted. In fact, I don't think there's any mention on their website about it at all.
I also think that's like the most genuine thing, because when they're advertised as haunted and ghost hunters are going there all the time looking for something, then it's like, the same way people would get exhausted. I feel like the energy gets manipulated, the spirits get exhausted in that way. And a lot of really, really famous haunts, I won't name any, but ones that you can think of that are recently really famous have had lots of reports of people going there and not experiencing anything. So I think the organic walking into something is like the best way to experience the supernatural if you do experience it or believe in it. You know, like the first thing that ever happened to me was kind of like that. Dumb luck walked into something.
Are there any places that are like super high up on your to-do list that you haven't been to? I know you said probably got hundreds that you'd like to see. Is there one that's like on the top of that list?
I think that going to the Winchester Mystery House is high up there, only because I've talked about Sarah Winchester so much, being from Connecticut, that I'm like, I have to go there. There's a lot of cases that are connected with other states. So like half of the stories here and then the other half of the stories somewhere else. I want to experience like the dollhouse graves that you see more in the South. Like there's literally so much. It's unreasonable. I have no desire to go to the Cecil. There's certain things that get really like popular, and I'm like, I don't even feel like I want to go there. I don't want to take the time out of my day to do that. And it's like interesting how a couple people talking about something can make everyone want to go there. But the stuff I like to see are, like you said, like more organic things where it's not maybe billed as being haunted, or it's not a really known haunt. I've actually never been to New Orleans, and so I would like to get down there and experience that, because I think it's just a different kind of vibe. And then there's one last grave with a window that I need to see.
Oh wow, that's kind of creepy, but that's cool though.
I've been to two. You don't see anything; they're all fogged up. But there's another one where they built one for a girl who was afraid of thunderstorms, and her mom would go down the steps to kind of like sit with her during thunderstorms. The other two, yeah, the glass is so thick you're not going to see anything, but it's just it's like a whimsical thing, like, oh, the grave with the window. Like, it's more about the idea of someone thinking to do that than it is like, I'm trying to see a dead body, because I'm the last person who has an interest in that.
Yeah, right. I think you probably see enough of the day job, right?
Yeah. Enough. I know what they look like.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned the Winchester. I saw that the funny little post you did about the apartments going up, and it's funny because my wife's family's from and I lived out there in Los Gatos for a while. It's not too far from where the Winchester Mystery House is, but my wife's family lives in Santa Clara, so we were just out there over the holidays, and we drove by and I saw that apartment complex going up around there, and I'm like, that's crazy, because knowing where the Winchester Mystery House is, it always seemed odd to me, because it's like the movie theaters, then this really cool old, like, which became more of an attraction, and then that's there. And then, but I did read an article. I was gonna actually, I meant to send it to you. They were saying how the owners were asked about that very thing, about because actually the movie theater next to it too has been like called an historical landmark. So they said the owner basically said they're totally going to be sensitive to that as they can, I guess. But I don't know what that means. You're still putting an apartment complex up right next to it. So I mean, it's like,
the place that I posted was actually the factory where they made the guns that she built, their whole thing was. So that's over here in New Haven. And she's buried here. That's here. Their original house was torn down, because that was the other thing. I'm like, what happened to her house? So I don't know about her childhood home or if it's in existence, but I'm like, why do we get so fascinated with, yes, the Winchester Mystery House is obviously very, impressive, but at the same time, like, if people dug a little bit deeper, they would find stuff. Like when I posted her grave, everyone's like, I wish I could go see her. I didn't know, because she lived there. They buried her on the property and they flew her back. And same with her house. But like I said, I found that ended up being fruitless and they tore it down. But she was neighbors with the house that they were going to film the Addams Family in before it got shut down. So it's kind of interesting how that connected.
All right, yeah, I saw that video too. That was cool, where you said the Addams House, or was it, or whatever. that was kind of funny.
But it's interesting to see how in the movie it played out. The Addams Family house that they were going to use was it looks exactly like the one they picked for the movie, so that they built for the movie. And the guy who owned that worked with Sarah Winchester's husband. They had a t-shirt factory together. So these are the things you don't find out on Google. They're like ground level research where I'm like, okay, how far down the rabbit hole am I going to get? Okay, house that was almost the Addams family house was Sarah Winchester's husband's ex-business partner, which was their neighbor before the house was turned down. Yeah, okay, got it. Like,
Yes.
not that in, I guess.
That's great. So here's a fun little question for you that I hope no one's asked you this yet, because I was kind of proud of this question when I came up with it. I thought it's kind of a little fun one here. So since we are primarily a horror movie podcast, if someone was going to make a film about your life, who would you want to play you in it?
I would flatter myself to say Kirsten Dunst because she's my favorite, but it would probably be Michelle Williams because everyone says that she looks like me.
Oh yeah, I kind of see that actually.
I can see both of those.
Yeah, no, either one would be work. Yeah, so did anyone ever ask you that before? Did we actually
no,
get it?
nobody ever asked me that.
Okay,
but
good.
yeah, I'd like to say someone really creepy or spooky, but it's gonna be the most like, happy little actress ever, probably, or something.
So almost up to our final question, but this is one I really wanted to ask. If anybody wanted to get into kind of what you do in terms of, I wouldn't say ghost hunting per se, but paranormal research, I guess is probably the better term. What advice would you give them?
I think the coolest haunted places that you're gonna find and the coolest ghost stories are going to be right down the street. And I say that about a lot of things. Like, the best story is not the one you drive the most far for. It's not the one with the most fame. It's going to be the one that your neighbor tells you. It's going to be the one that your parents tip you off to, whatever. And I think the invaluable resources that you're going to find are places or websites like newspapers.com, your local library, the historical society. And once you start digging into stuff, you're going to find, wait a minute, like, that isn't something I've ever heard of. How could that have happened here? For example, I'm from a small town, Indiana, Pennsylvania, and you would say nothing ever happened in Indiana. It's a college town. I've never heard of any murders. And then meanwhile, we go to a barn sale and we find a newspaper clipping from a Christmas Day murder from the 1800s. And it's like, wonder if anything ever happened in that house. I wonder if there's more. There's the houses that are right up the street that are haunted because everyone has always said it was the haunted house. And I think just looking past that. And I've always been someone who wants to see more than what's given to me at face value. I think it's important to be skeptical of things that are presented to you, be skeptical of just anything, media, television, whatever's being presented, and think about it on a next level. So to apply that to your daily life will allow you to be a better paranormal researcher. If you're looking to get into it, get in touch with a local paranormal group. Most places have one and they're pretty established and they might be tight knit, but they're going to let you go on investigations with them. And you might not find down the road that you align with their views or whatever, but you're going to pick stuff up. I hang out with people that are completely demon crazy and hate Ouija boards, for example. Just have to be open-minded no matter what. And if you're looking into paranormal research, like, I'm sure maybe a UFO landed a few towns over or something like that. That's part of it. The first thing you do, I guess, is start asking questions and try to find the answers to them.
That's great.
Awesome.
Though. Yeah, this is so far, but I mean, like, we're gonna wrap things up, but this has seriously been one of my favorite interviews we've had on the show, just because it was so unique to what we've had on, the guests on before, but it's cool because you could really tell that you have such a passion with what you do, and it's like like I knew we were gonna get some cool stuff, but like just all the different things that you shared with us tonight is just so cool to learn. I think our listeners are gonna love this too when they hear this, because because I'm sure there are people out there that want to they like the horror movies, but they also want to know that, like us, they like to know the real stuff. But before I let you go, though, we definitely want you to give you some time here on the floor. You can just if you want to share all your various social media sites, and I know you have like a link tree or something, right? It's with some stuff that you wanted. So if anything you want to share.
Oh yeah, sure. I'm looking to branch out outside of that and hopefully give people more in-depth looks, because I think what you're kind of alluding to is people don't really understand how to get started. And with my TikTok, which you can find under My Bloody Galentine, Instagram, I'm the same on all platforms, My Bloody Galentine. I'd like to show people more of the process. So I'll probably in the future be getting into YouTube. It's blank now, but I would like to show people what it's like to say, hey, I heard about this. Here's the information I could find, and here's the process of validating that information. Like I said, with the rooster, it was kind of like, I don't know if this stuff's true. Why would I regurgitate it or anything if I don't know? So those are primary what I'm using, but because everything has kind of exploded and people have been basically demanding more. Like people are like, you need a podcast, you need a blog, you need this and that. There's going to be more coming, but social media is the best way to reach out and follow what I'm working on.
That's cool. Yeah, I think you should. Personally, I mean, you like, I would love to watch a show like, you know, like extended, like one of those like half-hour shows of you going from like the beginning to you know, how you prepare, how you find out, and then get to the end of the actual tour of it. I think that would be amazing.
And the thing that went so amiss with the chicken is people didn't get to see my reaction to discovering that, because I was like, when I walked in, I was like talking to the ladies, learning about the town. I didn't want them to know I was there. I didn't want to say I'm investigating a ghost story. And then finally I was like, but what about David? And they're like, yes. So, I think David's here. And then they walk in the back and they're like dusting him off. And they're like, yeah, there's some stories with David. Like, I guess the person who originally donated him wanted him back. And I'm like freaking out at this point, because it's like when you take a stab in the dark and it works, because you also don't get to see how many times I go on a hunch and there's nothing, or the times I spend the night at a haunted place and hope for evidence and people don't see it, or I post a video using a spirit box and people beg for more videos. I'm like, I'm not going to fabricate anything. I'm not going to just crank stuff out for people to see. So a lot of times things get shut down. There's places that I've stayed that I've completely discarded after staying there. There was one ghost story in Vermont that I stayed at this hotel, and when I started looking into it, it wasn't true. So why would I, perpetuate a legend? Legends are fun, but why would I perpetuate something and present it like people who are looking to get into paranormal researching, they might find something there when they wouldn't?
Yeah, I like that. I love the history side of all this, because I'm a history buff. I love hearing the real history behind these things, and I think that's a piece that a lot of people don't get on these ghost hunting shows and stuff. They're just there for the big shock effects and things. They're not seeing all the legwork that goes behind, pouring through newspapers, trying to figure out what actually happened in these places, all the boring nights where nothing happens and they're sitting there for hours on end. That's all the stuff that gets kind of put on the cutting room floor. So I'd love to see, like Brian said, I'd love to see a YouTube video kind of going through that process from beginning to end. I think that sounds really cool.
That's one of the reasons I will say I never watched a ghost show. I randomly became a ghost hunter and then went back and I'm like, oh, that's who these are. And people will say, how do you know these people who are like kind of famous or whatever? And I'm like, because I didn't like go seeking celebrities. But I will say I have learned how to differentiate a lot of that stuff over the year. And Amy Bruni and Adam Berry, they host these events. It's Amy's company called Strange Escapes. And you can actually book it on her website. And they go all over to these haunted locations and let people who've been following them kind of investigate with them. Now, you might assume that something like that would turn out to be like, they're not willing to interact. But I went to a Strange Escapes event in the Mount Washington, at the Mount Washington Resort. It's owned by Omni now. And they were so like excited about it the whole time. They are completely authentic. Amy does the research. She uses all of the resources. She goes to historical societies. She looks at the newspapers. And I think when you have someone like that, they are deserving of the platform that they're handed, because there are, again, other ghost shows where people have been doing this and they're just looking for a scare. They're looking to get shock value for viewers. And when I met them, I was just like, wow, they really care about integrity. They care about debunking. They care about dismissing old rumors and legends. And I hope that many people follow that path instead of other paths that might lead to demon crazy, run and scream, like that kind of stuff.
That's awesome. So yeah, thank you so much for coming on. Now, this was such a treat for us, and I think our listeners are going to absolutely love it. I mean, I know it's like, you probably, I was worried. I'm like, okay, I'm going to reach out to her and she's going to see, okay, it's a horror movie podcast. That's exactly what I don't want to do because but so we really appreciate you coming on and sharing your stories with us and your craft, so to speak, because it really is. I mean, I learned way more than I thought I was going to on this episode. Just it's such a unique way to do it, and it actually gives me more of an appreciation of what you do versus some of these like shows that we all most of us watch because it's it's excitement. But like Tim said, it's like the pouring over of things where things don't happen sometimes are the best part because you really find out more.
Exactly. I really appreciate you guys asking me to be on here, actually. So I know you're probably thinking like, why would you want to talk to us? But I think it's important to interact with different circles. And I think it's important to branch the paranormal community outside of solely the paranormal community. We can't be an echo chamber. Sometimes people who know nothing about it provide the most insight, and the best paranormal books to read, the best paranormal shows to watch are ones that have nothing to do with it, because you're going to take the most of life lessons and ways to research from people who aren't going to influence you the same way things have always been done.
That's awesome. Awesome. So yeah, thank you so much again. And we of course you're welcome to come on anytime you have some cool stories or you want to promote anything. Like when we eventually get this show that we all want to see, you do. When that's going to start to air, just let us know if you want. We'll help. We'll make sure we share that with everybody because I think everyone's going to want to follow.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Okay, Brian, so that was a ton of fun. Becky's such a great, down-to-earth person to talk to, and I really loved like some of her insight into the whole paranormal community, which I had not really, I'm not in that community really, other than kind of as an outside observer, but I like to hear that perspective from somebody that is inside that community and is like really deeply involved on the social media side of it, and get her take on different aspects of that. I thought that was really fascinating.
Yeah, no, and like I said, it was really one of my favorite interviews we've ever done, just because it was so cool. I always like fascinated when someone who has such a passion about something and really follows their own path to it, and and just she gives her. She puts herself all into it and brings some just great content out there. So, and it's not just your usual, like as she says, you see these ghost hunter shows. It's well beyond that. She really dives deep into the history of stuff. And I think I just thought it was such an informative interview. It totally blew me away, like all the different nuances and stuff. So that was great. I was so glad she was able to come on.
Yes. So thanks again, Becky, for coming on. We are really appreciated that and had a great time with that interview. All right, so let's get on to our feature presentation. This is a movie that I had seen several years ago. I told Brian about. I think, Brian, you've always kind of had it on your list to watch at some point. But when we were going to have Becky on for the interview, we were trying to come up with a good kind of like ghost hunting type movie to pair with the interview. And this one immediately sprang to mind because I knew Brian had wanted to see it, and it was one of my favorites of the past few years. And that is The Awakening from 2011. This was directed by Nick Murphy, stars Rebecca Hall as Florence Cathcart, Dominic West as Robert Mallory, Imelda Staunton as Maud Hill, which I could not stop seeing her as Professor Umbridge from Harry Potter movies, Isaac Hempstead Wright as Tom Hill, Sean Dooley as Malcolm McNair, Joseph Mall as Edward Judd, Diana Kent as Harriet Cathcart, Richard Durden as Alexander Cathcart, and John Shrapnel. That's a great name.
Yeah, right.
Reverend Hugh Purslow.
That's a guy you don't want to mess with, But you almost think it'd be like a fake name, like you could see a couple of friends or getting together after a while, like say, yeah, hey, is Shrapnel coming? It's like and he's that guy that always you always want to show up, but he doesn't always show up. He doesn't always give you the full, the full presence of himself. He picks and chooses.
I would not have thought he'd be playing the Reverend. I thought he'd be playing the guy that comes in with a machine gun to kill all the ghosts.
Right? Yeah, you wouldn't expect him in a very religious role. He's kind of almost I feel like he's like a character that G.I. Joe would create, as an action figure, like Corporal Shrapnel. Yeah.
Yeah.
This poor guy.
So the synopsis here is, in 1921, England is overwhelmed by the loss and grief of World War I. Hoax exposer Florence Cathcart visits a boarding school to explain sightings of a child ghost. Everything she believes unravels as the missing begin to show themselves. And as it turns out, Brian, and this was completely coincidental, I'm reading a book entitled The Apparitionist, a tale of phantoms, fraud, photography, and the man who captured Lincoln's ghost. And it's by Peter Manseau. It's Manseau, if you want to look for it on Amazon. But this is a great book. I'm not finished with it yet, but it's about the history of spiritualism. Of course, back then, in the early days of spiritualism, there was a lot of fraud going around and people taking advantage of it. So you did have people like Harry Houdini who went and debunked a lot of these seances and stuff. I love anything about like the start of spiritualism and that kind of era. So it was really cool when I saw this movie to kind of be immersed, because they do a really good job of like setting that feel of those early days of spiritualism, especially when she starts pulling out kind of her primitive ghost hunting tools, which I thought were amazing. And Rebecca Hall, I've always loved her. She was in, I think that probably first saw her in The Prestige, which was one of my favorite books, and then they turned it into a movie, and she was in that. I think that was 2006. Was The Prestige, but I think it's the first thing I saw her in, and then she's been in a lot of stuff since then.
I'm kind of one of those things where she should be in as many things as possible, because she's one of those people that like just you can't help but like love her in movies. It's like no matter who she plays in it, it's like you always gotta have that like comfort going in, like, okay, she's in this, I'm okay. The driver, someone's in the driver's seat of this movie, Rebecca Hall's in it, I'm good.
She's got great film presence, doesn't she? I mean, you can't take your eyes off of her when she's on the screen. I think she's just has that captivating personality. I'm really drawn to her when I see her on the screen. So
especially in this one, this is like one of those, like, it is like a perfect fit for her. These are one of those like those vehicles that are like, when people like fit like a movie so well. Like this is like the type of movie she does so well, because she's like, she has to play this like kind of like she's very smart character, but she's got to have this vulnerable side that develops over the movie. So, she can't just play one note through the whole movie. So she has a lot of range in it. And I think that's what she excels in. So I think that's why something like this for her was so great.
Yeah. And just to give you a little bit, I mean, there's possible spoilers in here. It's a 10-year-old movie, guys. So if you haven't seen it, I would highly recommend going and watching it first before you listen to any spoilers, because it does have some twists and turns in it. But, she plays this character who is ahead of her time for the 1920s. She's one of, they kind of go out of their way a little bit to make her seem very rebellious, because she wears men's pants and she smokes, and they kind of, I don't think they overdo it, but they kind of try to give you the impression that goes against the normal grain of an everyday 1920s lady during that era. And so I really like that aspect of her character, because she's a really strong female lead. So she's basically called in to investigate this boys' school ghost. We learn right up front in the movie that she's a debunker, because she debunks a seance, which is a great scene. I love that opening scene.
Yeah.
With the whole seance thing and how she debunks it. But she goes to investigate this boys' school, and of course she just completely right off the bat thinks that this is a bunch of hogwash. And the reason they've invited her to investigate this is because there was the death of a student there, and they believe that maybe somehow this ghost was involved with the death of this boy. And they have other kids saying they've seen this ghost. So she's going there basically to debunk this whole thing. Now, if you've seen any of these movies, weird things are going to start happening to the skeptic, and then crazy events are going to start to occur. So you kind of get the feel that where this movie's going, but I would argue that a lot of the twists and stuff in this you probably won't see coming.
Yeah, no, these are twists that you may like kind of have a hunch where you might have an idea of certain things, but not. I doubt you'd probably be able to get the full twist of it. I just don't. I think they do a good job of not tipping the hand too much. Like I think if people that, like you said, Tim, people will know the film. Like you say, oh, okay, I think this is going to happen here, but not in the way you think. I don't think the full connection that's revealed at the end is going to be figured out that early on. Though I will say though one thing, it's like you're in for something though when you see first of all you see a whole bunch of creepy crap bag kids like running around these little boys in those little outfits that are always. I think they're like literally it's like a little boy ghost outfit really what these things are.
Yes,
like any movie that features one of these kids always wearing this exact outfit.
You're right. It's like standard boy ghost.
It is like that's like when you go to Party City, if you're looking for a costume, this is boy ghost. This is the costume you get. These little school outfits. And then of course when you see Dolores Umbridge working at the school, she just doesn't do well in school settings. I don't know if that's the first place I would. And lately she's been in these horror movies we watched. She was in that other one we got the screener for last year. I'm like, I'm starting to think that she's like these things attached to her. So I don't know if you kind of see her in a movie. If you're a character, you might as well just go the other way,
And she does play a nice person in this, so it's kind of weird.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to watch her playing a nice role because I really, in a school setting, I really expect her to be super mean.
Right,
So,
like you
Harry
expect her to have
Potter's
like
ruined
Mad
her.
Eye Moody's eye in her pocket,
Yeah,
But like, yeah, and the thing is, like, she is a brilliant actress. Like, I don't, it's like, I mean, I know she gets a lot of acclaim, but like, and well deserved. But like, I think the fact that like just us discussing that like literally she has that presence for like, I mean, there is. Yeah, I mean, anyone that's seen Harry Potter, knows what we're talking about. She plays such a hateable character in that, and I think she does like from the book. I mean, I guess we should defer to your brother and Amanda though for the true expertise of what they think of her performance versus the way she was written in the book. But I think she was played the way she was perfect. But yeah, no, and so, but she's like, she's such a good actress. Like in this, she's like, she's like Tim said, she's good. She's good at, she plays a good character, very pleasant. But yeah, but there's still something creepy about her, and that's I think what's so good about her is like, even though she's very likable in the movie, there's, you're always kind of on your toes, your little the hairs in the back of your neck stand up when she walks around, so it's like it's kind of interesting, but.
And while we're on the subject of actors, you've got Isaac Hempstead Wright, who I'm sitting there the whole movie going, where do I know him from? Where do I know him from? And I could not place him. And so I finally looked him up, and then I realized he played Bran in Game of Thrones. Of course, he was older then. So that's why I knew I'd seen him. I was like, I've seen this kid, but older. So it's got to have been something more recent than this movie.
Yeah, and also, like, in terms of performances, too, Dominic West, I think, does an amazing job in his role.
Yes, he's very good.
I think that's one of the things I think I liked so much about this movie is that, like, this movie, as good as, the kind of the cool premise that I like always anyway, but the fact that, when you have such a great cast that basically take the vision forward, it could, if you didn't have strong people in this, it could have been like almost like a joke of a movie. But they cast it with great people, so it was in such good hands. And there was just what I loved about it is like even though it's like you've kind of seen this the basic plot of this before in several other movies. I don't know. I think just this one did something in a way. I mean, I thought it was beautifully shot too. I like they definitely had a filter in the lens to make the that kind of color scheme of the time, and I thought. Just visually was stunning. You have that old school setting, which is always kind of creepy and, in its own right. And just, and then there were just some, different set pieces amongst the school that were like the little dock that she goes off to the edge to, when she wanted, just like the isolation of sequences of her, like always seem like, she kind of always almost like puts herself in these dangerous situations, and I thought that was, and Rebecca Hall, that's where I think her vulnerable side could come out in those scenes. And I think that's what made her such a strong lead for this movie.
Yeah, but speaking of the cinematography, I agree. Like the movie has like this bluish gray feel to it the entire movie, but I wasn't distracted by it. It fits the theme of the movie so well that it just, you kind of become immersed in it and don't even realize that they did that. Yeah, I loved everything about the cinematography and the feel. You really get immersed in this movie and kind of get caught up in that atmosphere, and it has that, for lack of a better word, it just has that boy ghost feel to it.
It does, right?
I don't know how else to explain it, but it just has that feel of those movies that you see that has these ghosts from this time period. They just captured that perfectly. And it has a few good jump scares. Now, of course, I had already seen this movie, so I kind of knew what to expect going in the second time. But the first time you watch it, there's some pretty good jump scares here and there. And, it largely avoids one of the common criticisms I have of ghost movies, which you've heard me talk about on the show countless times. That is showing too much of the ghost. And I always say, don't show too much of the ghost. I thought they did a pretty good job. There's only one moment in this movie where I thought they went a little bit too far in doing that. But otherwise, I thought they handled it very well. I thought they did a really good job of keeping the ghost mysterious for most of the film. I don't know if you felt the same way, Brian, but I thought they handled that piece of it fairly well.
Yeah, and actually there were some, like, the way they did it was, like, really creepy because it was like a distorted face a lot of times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and
I like that part.
Yeah, and I thought that was kind of neat because it wasn't like, you never really got a clear picture of it. When you did, it was, like, distorted and creepy, and you weren't, like, sure, but it was just long enough for you to get the feel of it without being able to analyze it. It's
right,
like,
exactly, yeah. So, the other thing I wanted to talk about too is we said there was going to be spoilers. I'm not going to spoil the actual twists and turns because I don't really. I think I can say what I want to say without doing that, I guess is my reasoning behind that. So if you guys have listened and just didn't want to go watch the movie, you won't get the true ending spoiled. But I will say there was some depth to Florence that goes way beyond what I would expect out of this film. I would have expected going into this that she's just, okay, on paper, she's just the diehard spiritualist debunker. But as the movie progresses, you start to learn why she does what she does. And there's a lot more to her character than what you see in the beginning. And in fact, that depth plays a huge role in the movie and in all the twists and things. So that's the one thing I really liked about this movie is I thought they did a great job of her character being so much more than what you initially see at the start of the movie.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing, and that's again, a lesser actress may not have been able to, pull all of that off. But with Rebecca Hall, she's got the acting chops for sure to be able to pull that off because she's, because she has that talent. So, yeah, overall, I definitely recommend this one to anyone that loves those kind of ghost movies, loves those period type, those older time period movies, especially ones with with great set pieces and everything. Like, hey, you like that? Like this movie, there's no way this movie could disappoint you.
Yeah, I think the other thing too, Brian, is I think another reason I like this movie so much is it doesn't feel like it was created to be a horror movie. Really, it doesn't feel like it's made. Like I said, there's some jump scares in it, but it doesn't feel like those jump scares are exploitive. It doesn't feel like a movie that's trying to really scare you. It feels like a movie that has a different message. And if you go read the trivia, that message is very strong in the movie about a meditation on grief and what it means to lose somebody. And the last line of this movie is really the whole point of this entire movie when you go back and read what the director said about it. So I think that's one of the reasons the film worked so much for me is because they could have easily made this like a Conjuring type movie where the whole point was to scare you. And
right.
Really that's a side effect. The scariness is kind of a side effect of the actual message of the movie.
Yeah, and I saw some people complain. They're like, oh, well, it starts off good and then it's all jump scares. I'm like, you did not get this movie then. You missed the point of the movie. You obviously did not. The message was lost on you.
Yeah, I felt like the jump scares were not the point of the movie. I thought the exact opposite. I thought they were a side effect of what the actual message was. So
I mean, and if you think about it, almost all the jump scares were almost from the character's perspective. It wasn't like a jump scare to scare the audience. It was a jump scare to scare the character that you were along for the ride with. So, I mean, and if you don't, there is a difference, there's a difference when it's a character just making a quick turn to look down a hallway, scaring the audience. But when the character is is getting the jump scare to them, essentially. You're along for the ride, and there is a major difference. Tim and I, we always joke with Tim's and his jump scares, but and so Tim is telling you that an opinion on jump scares, you have to hold this with high regard. he is an expert.
Well, also, these jump scares are integral to the character's advancement. Like they're important to the plot. Like she has to experience things that she can't explain in order to drive the plot forward. I mean, these are not put in there cheaply. These are meant to demonstrate this is stuff that happened to her that's shaking her belief system.
Right.
So, yeah, I really thought I thought they were very well done. And I take it from me, I'm a jump scare expert because I'm scared of all of them.
He is. So. Like Felissa Rose has got her expertise. Well, Tim is his jump scare expert. And, and what too is there was one cool scene what I love, and it led from kind of a jump scare into it. And then I think when they played it back into the scene, I thought this was one of my favorite scenes is the scene where where just to put it, so it's not a spoiler, the guy with the gun that comes out.
Yeah.
And she flips out and freaks out and she snaps all the pictures. And then when she's quickly developing the pictures and you just see her falling in all the still in different pose, of her basically different steps of her falling. I thought wow, that's a really cool take on it. It wasn't just random pictures of a blank shot. They actually incorporated her in there as if the camera was falling in that weird way. So stuff like that. There's little touches to this movie that I think shouldn't go unsaid because I think they really added to a lot of the reasons I like this movie. I'm already looking at it to purchase for the monolith. Right now they have a regular kind of bare bones version, but for I think there's $9.99 on Amazon. But I kind of want to wait and see if they ever do a really cool version of this, like an Arrow or a Shout Factory or something. I think it's deserving.
Yeah, I feel like this is one of those that may have flown under the radar for a lot of people. I mean, The Awakening, it's kind of a generic title. I don't know what it did at the theater or anything. I don't know what the success was, but I feel like it's one of those movies that could have easily flown under your radar, and I think it deserves attention because I think if you enjoy ghost movies, I think even period pieces, if you're a history fan, I think you would really like it. That's why I thought it paired really well with our interview tonight.
Yeah, and the fact that Shudder now has it, which is pretty good. And so I'm looking at it. Actually, it's funny. So it actually it must have opened in small theaters. I don't think it was a big open movie. It's probably played more at the art houses because the opening weekend was only $95,000. Okay, it's very small. It obviously was not everywhere with that, And then I think the worldwide gross was just $6 million. That's kind of on par for your average kind of indie type of horror movie like that, So I think it was. It was a UK film, so I don't even know how, it probably was not playing at many theaters in the United States.
Yeah. I think this was one, like I said, I think this is one that kind of flew under the radar, but probably this would be what I would describe as a hidden gem. I think this is a hidden gem if you haven't seen it.
Oh, yeah. I agree 100%. So definitely check it out on Shudder.
And if you guys don't have Shudder, I think it's available on Tubi if you're willing to put up with some ads.
I think it's on Tubi also, and I think it's also on AMC Plus, I believe, currently. So you have plenty of options. You have a free option, and you also have a couple of paid options. Oh, and speaking of free option, I'm sorry, we forgot to mention that we should have mentioned this at first drop that the new service that Cone found today that told us.
That's right. Yeah.
The Kino, was it Cult Kino or Kino Cult?
Kino Cult. So Kino has put out some free cult streaming service that has all kinds of crazy movies. There's actually some really good stuff on there.
Yeah. That's the thing. It's not there's some funny ones that we'll laugh at, but there's also some really good movies from the different eras on here. So it's called Kino Cult. That's the name of it. But there's stuff I'm trying to look. There's a whole thing on just Euro horror classics.
Yeah, they have it nicely broken down into different categories, sort of like what Shudder does.
Yeah.
But it has some really, so I thought some really interesting things on here. Yeah, Euro horror classics from the art house, art exploitation, 70s and 80s flashback, mod love, strange obsessions, classics. I mean, they have some really, really cool things on here. I mean, for free, this is a no-brainer to go check this out.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely got some, it's got like Black Sunday from Mario Bava. It's got, Lugosi, some Lugosi classic movies. It's even got Unsenda Lu on here. It's so something like that. It's like, to find all this on a service for free, that's pretty impressive. So, yeah, I don't know. I haven't watched anything on this. I don't know how many times the commercials appear on here. But, still, it's got some cool stuff. And it's cool, it's like a comedic, like, thing. It's got that movie Cone, like, Scavenger Hunt. It's got, like, it's got dramas. It's not just all horror, obviously, because, not every cult movie has to be horror. Right. But they do have some interesting ones. Like, there's one, literally, it's called Golden Age Exploitation section, and there's a thing called How to Take a Bath. So, yeah, I mean, there's some
really wild
stuff. I sound like the Johnny Carson impression. That's wild and wild stuff there. It's just weird and wild. But yeah, no, there are some crazy stuff on here. But I mean, what they opened up with a bang, I'll tell you, with this to have like such a great free service like that. So this is pretty cool. There's a weird Telly Savalas movie on here. I don't know. It's called The House of Exorcism, but it's just his giant bald head superimposed into the house. It makes me want to watch it.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it'd be great.
Right? Yeah, especially if he, it's like, like he's not in his non-Kojak role. It's like, cool.
So Brian, I guess we should get back to the movie. What was our beer pairing for The Awakening?
Okay, so the beer pairing is The Awakening, and it's actually, and think of this, from Angry Chair Brewing, which kind of fits into the movie itself a little bit. Also.
Yeah, there you go.
So it's out of Tampa, Florida. Its ABV is 7.4%. I don't have much on this for the description, unfortunately, but it's just a coffee milk stout with vanilla beans and cocoa nibs. Sorry, I typed it wrong. Cocoa nibs.
Tampa's got some cool places because I used to have to go to Tampa all the time for training, and I'd have to go down there every year to basically do computer training for our workers, like how to submit your timesheet and how to do this and how to do that.
You need to be in person for that.
Yeah, well, back then, it wasn't. Everything wasn't Zoom. They didn't have Zoom calls or anything, so I had to fly down there every year. But I actually loved it because we would hang out at all these places downtown that had all these great breweries, and you had.
But one of your favorites, Tim, Cigar City.
Yeah, exactly. And great little bars down there. So after training, after work, we'd all go down there and hang out and have a great time. They had some really, really cool places down there. So yeah, well familiar with Tampa's beer scene. And of course that's been 15 years ago now. So I'm sure it's exploded a lot since then.
And that's also where Cone's lovely wife Nicole is from.
Tampa. Nice.
So. Yeah, so that's a good one. So now we have our game. I think the last one we figured was a gimme. I think this next one might be a little harder.
Yeah, I think so. Well, let's go through the gimme here. So our last week triple threat, we were looking for an actor or actress, and that actor was David Arquette.
Formerly of the David Arquette Project on Coaster Radio.
That's right. So clue number 1. My first 2 acting roles were in TV series made from films with the same name. So David starred first in the Outsiders TV series as Keith Two-Bit Matthews, and then in Parenthood TV series as Todd Hawks. Clue number 2. I starred in 2 movies with the exact same title. So, of course, David played Dewey Riley in Scream 1996 and Scream 2022.
Yeah, that should have been the giveaway right there. I mean, that's got to be the giveaway. Like, how many, other than Halloween lately, like, what movie is, like, literally has the exact same title like that? I mean, maybe RoboCop, I guess, the remakes. You can find a remake, but, yeah.
Yeah. And then this one I thought was kind of a good clue. I am one of 5 siblings who have all acted. Of course, David's from a big acting family, so his siblings, Rosanna, Patricia, Richmond, and Alexis, have all acted in films. Or films or TV. So this week, we are looking for a movie. Just a movie. And here are your clues. Clue number 1. The title I'm known by was not my original title when I was first released.
So okay, that one could probably explain like 1,000 movies, but
exactly. Clue number 2. This is your big clue. I was released in the 80s, yet have just now announced a sequel. And clue number 3. The tagline I used in my trailer was "School was hell, but vacation was murder."
And just to let you know, that one is like you figure, oh, easy. I'm just gonna Google that. That is not. I Googled it to make sure it wasn't so super easy, and I scrolled down a few pages and couldn't find a description of that. Now, maybe it was depending on your algorithm or something, I guess. And if you word it maybe a little bit, you might be able to find that. But it was like, it's not the tagline from the poster, and that's usually what comes up when you Google stuff. So this was the tagline from the trailer itself. So you kind of have to kind of know where you're heading to possibly get to figure this one out. So
very nice. All right, so it's time for our Fan Topic Foo listener question of the week. This is a really, really good one. What is the scariest non-horror movie? This one comes to us courtesy of David McHugh, Horror Mailman on Twitter. What is the scariest non-horror movie? Do you have one for this, Brian?
I mean, I have one that's a lot of people's, but I was trying to think of, more in the spirit of things, some other one. But one of them, I think, was, and not that it was, probably wasn't my most scariest, but it definitely was scary because of the topic that I was kind of obsessed and fear with. But, that movie, The Day After, that came out about nuclear war and everything.
Oh, that's funny because that's very closely related to what my answer was.
Yeah, and because that one, and I remember a lot of people, like, in fact, like, they were telling people on the news, like, parents, do not let your kids watch it. Don't let you're not supposed to see that. Yeah, so that was one of the ones that I definitely put in there. But I was trying to think of another one that maybe could like kind of fit that because and now that's his weird thing. So some science fiction movies are not considered necessarily horror. I mean, yes, there is a horror element to some of these, but like you see a movie where you get maybe like a kind of like an alien abduction kind of movie. Is that true horror all the time? It definitely leans more towards sci-fi. So I was trying to think of something there, but I couldn't even think of something that didn't blend too much into horror. But I'm also trying to think of movies that just had beyond just a scene that kind of scared me, But I think if I had to write, someone had to like write to me and said like, all right, pick one, probably would go to I'd probably go to that right now was The Day After.
That's funny that you said that because mine was also about a nuclear war, and that was Threads. Have you seen Threads?
No, actually.
Oh my gosh, Threads is scarier than The Day After. I think Threads was a British movie, and it goes through the entire sequence of events of when basically war was announced through the war and the aftermath, and it is done in a very realistic style, and it is very, very terrifying. I've seen The Day After. It's been a while since I've seen it. I saw that more as a kid, but I feel like Threads might one up it in terms of the horror.
Now I gotta look this up.
I think it's actually on Shudder. I think is where I watched it. And you might say, "Oh, you can't do that. That's a horror movie if it's on Shudder." Not necessarily. It's on Shudder because it's so terrifying. It was not released as a horror movie. It was released as basically a drama about what would happen in an actual war. So I would definitely argue. I believe it was a television made for television movie. So it was not made to be a horror film because it aired on public television. It was a war. They even describe it here on the wiki as an apocalyptic war drama. So it's really really terrifying. That would definitely be my pick. And I actually saw that one fairly recently. I think I saw that one maybe last year. Some other ones, I watch a lot of true crime. I think a lot of true crime stuff could fall under that category just because it's real.
Yeah. Actually, you know what? You know what always kind of scared me? Any movie where someone's like falsely imprisoned, and they get pulled into something, like, and they're like framed or something, like, or like because someone's out to get them. And I'm like, my God, that could like happen to anyone, like, and you never know, or movies where like, like a whole bunch of like, like a whole group of people decide that they just don't like someone. They like target them and like try and like make their life living hell. Like that, that like that bully syndrome. That's kind of always a frightening thing too. Actually, oh, you know what? Here's one too. Actually, this is another one. It's that movie Kids, because like that's just that whole frightening aspect of it, like because that's that kind of behavior exists amongst kids, and it's like something like that is kind of always frightening to me because it's so close to like real stories you hear.
I know another one that's definitely fits the bill. How about Free Solo?
Oh yeah, that's right.
That movie terrified
That movie did
me.
freak me out because because I wanted to know where the heck he went to the whole bathroom situation just bothered me, and that's bad enough. Like the whole that would have just frightened me enough, like knowing the fact that I have to like drop poop from above. But but yeah, no, that you're right. That one is kind of freaky. Oh, and that actually kind of in the same vein of it, but more that one, The Walk, the one that Joseph Gordon-Levitt did about the guy that did the trapeze.
Oh yeah, I watched the actual documentary, which was Man on
Not
a
the
Wire.
trapeze, tightrope.
Yeah, tightrope. I watched the Man on a Wire documentary, which is what that was based off of, and that's the actual documentary. Yeah. So you see the actual thing of it. Yeah, Free Solo, if you guys don't know, was about the guy the free solo climber that uses no equipment, and he's climbed El Capitan. But God, the way they filmed that was just absolutely. If you're scared, at least even mildly afraid of heights, don't watch that movie. It is terrifying.
Imagine it. Did they have a VR version? Can you imagine that?
They do.
They have the game, The Climb.
They have a VR version of it. There was actually
really?
a VR version of it. Yeah, somebody was talking about that the other day, and I was like, oh my God, I don't know if I could do that.
Be like the Ghostbusters sequence. Remember in that VR thing we did, Ghostbusters, where it's like you're on the ledge and you feel the ledge and you're looking down.
Yeah.
But actually, you know what one kind of used to freak me out as a kid? Well, two of them. One more recent was that 127 Hours.
Yeah.
Because like that whole thing of being lost and not being, possibly we don't, and you're never found again. Like that, and it's like that one sequence where he doesn't answer the call of his mom. I'm like, oh my God, so many times like I'm like in the middle of something and I can't get to the phone and I'm like, oh, I'll call my mom back later, and then you forget, and then like no one knows where you are, stuff like that. And then do you remember that movie? There's a couple of movies with the same name, but that movie Fortress, where it was I think it's Rachel Ward, I think is her name, the actress, but she's like a teacher. And she's got this bunch of students, and they get kidnapped by these like four like criminals. Like one's wearing like a Santa Claus mask. One's like I think a rabbit head. But I remember that the lead, one of the older students, her name is Narelle, and they kept going Narelle when they're like trying to find her. But it's like because they're on the run and they're like hiding up in the mountains, kind of a thing. It's kind of almost like a little bit of a Lord of the Flies-esque kind of thing, like that. But where they're like all the kids and the teacher have to band together to kind of fight against and escape from these four criminals. So stuff like that. Like I think that basically any of those things where like. The truer to life of these situations where it could happen, the ones that like the Everest, something like that, like a movie like where like, you can get trapped or something bad happens, like that. Oh, Alive. That was another one, Alive, because like the plane crash part.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Another good one is a documentary called The Bridge, and it's where these people set up cameras and basically filmed every suicide off the Golden Gate Bridge in a certain time span.
Oh, I heard about that. Yeah. You actually watched that?
Yeah, I watched that. It's pretty terrifying because you're watching people actually leap to their death. But I mean, it's not graphic. You're seeing it from a distance, but still, people died doing this, and it's really disturbing in that way. But there's also stories from people who survived it, which is really fascinating too. So that's still a very troubling movie. I don't know if it'd be necessarily scary, but it's disturbing.
Yeah. Well, these things I'm saying that are scary, not like I'm sitting there like terrified up at all night of it, Yeah. But it's like more like I'm trying to think of non-horror movies with like scary elements to it, like that. There's one I'm completely forgetting that I know that from my childhood, and I know it wasn't a horror movie, and I know it was something that used to freak me out, and I can't. I remember it used to be on TV all the time, and like when I watch it, I used to get. Like it used to freak me out, but I'd always watch it anyway. One of those like an idiot kid would, I'd watch the same thing over. But I just remember it wasn't a horror movie, but it was something that it was like some major sequence towards the end of the movie used to creep me out. If I think about it, I know a rule is usually to do it this time, but if I remember it, I will definitely share it on a future episode because I know it'll come up in a conversation. Probably did already. We probably discussed it like 25 shows ago or something. But I'm sure we'll come up with it.
And speaking of future episodes, next week, if everything goes well, we're going to have a really cool guest on that I've been looking forward to for a long time, Brian, because we have our Civil Gore has their super fans. I'm a super fan of this person's podcast. We'll put it that way. So hopefully that will take place. I'm really, really excited about that. And Brian, I guess we don't know what the movie's going to be, but I think it needs to be something from the 80s. What do you think?
Yes, and that's your clue. If you're astute, you may be able to.
But maybe not a lot of people know this podcast.
That's true.
Which could be possible.
It's sure if they don't know, it's not from a lack of you mentioning it.
Yes, that's right. We've mentioned this podcast on our show a lot of times because it's an inspiration for our podcast. So we'll tease that later on in the week as we finalize plans for that, and then we got some more interviews lined up after that actually. So it's just been interview city here in January.
Yeah, and I'm sure, and I know you have plans on more of them. And too, believe it or not, hopefully we're in the planning stages right now. Actually, we have booked we have the hotel reservations at least for the New Jersey HorrorCon this year. So that's going to be a actual you'll hear all new stories from HorrorCon. Hopefully, if all goes well.
So then for the next 5 seasons, you can listen to our second New Jersey HorrorCon stories.
Yeah, but this time we're kind of going in with like a little Civil Gore army, right? I guess kind of.
Yeah, that's right. We got a whole crew gonna go right up in there, so we'll have it could get crazy.
Yeah, it'll be fun. Though I think it'll be even now that we've kind of gotten through the we know the lay of the land, so to speak. And I don't know if you saw it, Tim, but that arcade we love, they turned into a giant arcade sports bar mini golf thing.
Yeah, I was looking at the pictures online. I was like, wow, they've really spruce this place up. It's even better.
Once Civil Gore made his presence, they're like, all right, we need these guys back. We need to spruce this part up here. But so I think, but what's cool about that is I think we need to have a Civil Gore mini golf tournament. I think we need to have some cool events going on there.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have to do definitely some kind of interaction things going on. Some kind of really cool things at that, especially with the group we'll have there. It'll be fun.
Yeah, and if any listeners want to hit New Jersey Horror and hang out, we'll be there.
Yes, and we will not be hard to spot because of my loud, obnoxious voice and Tim's dulcet tones. You'll just hear a very polar opposite type of conversation. And so,
All right, guys. Well, we'll see you back here next week. Take care.
See ya.